Hi guys, I'm Steve Gamble at South Assembly of God Church. Today, I want to talk to you about the Gospels, in particular, the Synoptic Gospels. I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that and what they are. Of course, we know there's four Gospels that we read about in the New Testament: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These are known collectively as the canonical Gospels. So, when I talk about the Synoptic Gospels, what we're talking about is the first three books of the New Testament: Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And I want to explain to you what synoptic means. It actually means seen together because they are so closely related. They have a lot of the same stories, a lot of the same parables. For instance, they have the parables, candle under the bushel, new cloth on old garments, new wine in the old wineskins, the mustard seed, the young leaves of a fig tree. All these gospels, parables, they share together. However, there are several parables that are totally different. They're exclusive to each book. Take, for instance, Matthew, that has 11 parables that are unique just to Matthew. Mark has 2 parables that are unique just to Mark. And Luke has 17 parables that are unique only to Luke. And the same goes for the miracles of Jesus. There are 10 miracles that the synoptics have in common. Peter's mother-in-law cured, the tempest stilled, demoniacs cured, leper cured, Jairus' daughter raised to life, woman with the issue of blood cured, a paralytic cured, man's withered hand cured, unclean spirit cast out, and blind men cured. These are the 10 miracles that the Gospels share. Now there's Matthew that has 3 unique miracles. Mark with 2 miracles that's not mentioned anywhere else. And Luke has 7 unique miracles that are only in Luke. And I want to talk a little more about that when we get to Luke, why I think Luke had more miracles and more parables than the other books did. And, when we talk about the differences of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, I think we need to look at the big picture here. There's different perspectives that we're seeing that's making up the face of Jesus. That brings in, just like at a witness at a crime scene, you get different perspectives to bring in the full picture. And that's the same thing we're getting here with Matthew, Mark, and Luke, is their perspectives on each. And I think some of the differences we read in the synoptics can be explained when we learn who the audience was of each book. Like Matthew, he was geared for the Jewish people of the day. He was connecting the Old Testament prophecies of Jesus as Messiah, the Anointed One. Just like in Isaiah chapter 7:14. What's neat is Matthew was taking that prophecy that was 700 years prior to the birth of Christ, and he was connecting that for the Jewish people to see that Jesus was exactly who they was waiting for. Same with Micah chapter 5 verse 2, where he prophesied the birthplace of Jesus. All of Matthew pointed to Jesus as the king that the Jews were waiting for. And Mark was writing to the Romans. It was under the guidance of Peter. You see, he was kind of taking Peter's eyewitness account and putting it into a book. And what Mark was really trying to do was persuade the Romans to see Jesus as the true Son of God. And Mark does leave out a few things that Matthew and Luke talk about, such as the very first thing you're going to notice is that he leaves out the birth of Jesus, and he gets right into the nitty-gritty. It's actually the most action-packed book out of the Gospels, and it's also the shortest. What I think is so neat is that Mark, like I said, was really trying to talk to the Romans, and I think it's so fitting that he includes the confession of the Roman centurion at the time of Jesus' death, at the crucifixion, in Mark chapter 15, verse 39, that the Roman centurion confessed that truly this is the Son of God. And now finally we get to Luke. You see, Luke wrote to the Greeks. And he wrote to one, he kind of dedicated the whole book to Theophilus. In some debate whether this was a real person or whether this was a group of people. Because Theophilus, the name, means man who loves God. Luke has the most detailed accounts of Jesus' birth and some of the most detailed accounts of his healings, such as the woman with the issue of blood. He has a lot more detailed accounts there. He also has the most healings as well, as we saw. And I think a part of this is because Luke was a physician. So he had that kind of a thinking, inquiring mind, which is so fitting for Luke to be the one talking to Greeks, because Greeks as well were very inquiring minds. And Luke certainly does not disappoint. If you have an inquiring mind, it does not disappoint. So with all that together, like I said before, this is all three different perspectives giving us one big picture of Jesus. Even with their differences, the Synoptics do not contradict one another, but rather they beautifully complement one another.